What's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and we're back again here. We just did Best Picture, so if you missed that out, consider subscribing to the channel down below and check out that video. But today, we're diving into Best Director, both screenplay categories, and our brand new Oscar category, Best Casting.
This is a video we haven't done in a long time. We said we were going to do it last month, but finally we're here. We are talking about all of these above the line categories, and nothing's really changed from our last recording session. Oh, I saw Jay Kelly. That's one thing that's changed.
Yeah.
I actually do see an angle for Jay Kelly now, having seen it. I don't think it's a strong angle. I don't think that the critics or the audiences have really been eating this up. But this is a film that will rely on, does the industry connect with it? Because this is a story about a workaholic who is in show business and has pushed everyone in his life away because he's a workaholic. I was really surprised. Noah Baumbach's direction, I think, was my standout from it. Like, dude, those long takes are incredible.
Interesting. It's cool that you finally got to see Jay Kelly. I was not as high on it when I saw it a few months ago, but I am excited to rewatch it, whether that is going to be on Netflix or at a local indie theater here. I still think there is, like you said, an angle for Jay Kelly. It's just, will it get those nominations? Because as we'll talk about in a few categories here today, it's probably like the first or second one out in a lot of the places where it's fighting for. So it's just, will it get over the hump?
Absolutely. And right now I have Jay Kelly for 3 nominations. I've got it for Clooney. I've got it for original screenplay, which we'll talk about that in this video, but it's low. And I think it can get in score. Nicholas Bertel kind of went off.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Kelly Hive, Clooners Unites. It's going to happen. You got to hop on it ahead of time. But one thing that we got in a comment a few weeks ago that we should start doing when we record these is the day that we're recording. It is November 9th. So by the time this comes out, maybe new things have happened. Maybe we've seen new movies. I see, is this thing on this week? I'm sure Matt will see something in the next week.
I'm seeing Eternity tomorrow. I'm seeing Song Sung Blue and Ann Lee on Tuesday. I'm seeing No Other Choice on Wednesday. And then I'm knocking off like 3 or 4 documentaries that are sure to make the short list over the next week as well. So and then Hamnet next weekend.
Yeah. Dill checking in here from the editing room real quick just to give a massive shout out to all of you out there for being members of our Discord community, which you can join in the link right down below. Barris, he's that guy. He continues to put together this super cool new dynamic aspect we're adding to our predictions, which is all of your collective Filmball server community awards expert predictions, which we will showcase right here on the show, as you'll see throughout this episode, popping up on our right-hand side as we enter inside of each new category that we talk about, is all of your collective predictions out there, and we can kind of see how they differ from both Matt and myself, because everyone, we have different takes. It's November. It's okay to be different. There's nothing right. There's nothing wrong. It's a fun way, especially when we come back to these videos later in the year, to see how different we all were and who was the most accurate as far out in advance. But I'm gonna quit yapping. Let's dive back inside these predictions.
So
Hamnet next Sunday. By then, hopefully, we'll be back around to do our accurate predictions. So
yeah,
we'll, like I said before, consider subscribing, because next week we'll have our Hamnet updates, and we'll decide if Buckley is sweeping, if Paul Mescal can upsend supporting actor, and if Hamnet is actually a viable Best Picture contender for a win. But in a category where I feel like we both have Hamnet pretty assured for a nomination, if not number 2, is in the Best Director category.
yes, Best Director, Chloe Zhao is the runner-up in my opinion, because number 1 has gotta be Paul Thomas Anderson. I think we're both in agreement on that. PTA has not won an Academy Award. He has never gotten a screenplay win, never got a director win. And this year, I mean, spoiler for a later category, he's gonna get both. He's gonna clean up both of those categories.
I think regardless of whatever prospects you have, one battle after another going down the line for Best Picture, if you have it coming out victorious, or if you do have it coming up short to something like Hamnet or Sinners or whatever else you may have, I think that director is going to be PTA this year. For everything that you just said, this man has never won before, and you can make a case that this is his strongest argument in his career, because yes, he had There Will Be Blood, but it was also going against another complete juggernaut that season from directors who hadn't really had their moment to shine. And this
Mhm.
year, you could say his biggest competition is someone who just won a Best Director prize. So maybe Chloe Zhao can pull an AGI, but I would be more inclined to say even if Hamnet goes on to win picture, that maybe director doesn't come along and PTA takes it this year.
You make a great point there. When he was up for There Will Be Blood, he was up against one of the great overdue filmmakers, being the Coen brothers. Granted, they had won screenplay prizes before. They'd won for Fargo, but they had never won Best Director. And going up against them, like, how do you beat the Coen brothers for that movie? How do you can't. You can't beat them. And here, he's in that position now. He's no longer the guy in the first 10 years of his career. He has had, almost 30 years worth of hits, worth of people loving him, and he has zero Oscars to his name. If there has ever been someone who's overdue, it is Paul Thomas Anderson this year. And honestly, even if somehow One Battle After Another lost Best Picture, he wins Best Director.
Totally agree there. And I think that for most people out there, and I would say everyone out there should have these two directors as their top two in the category. After that, though, I think is where the fun part kind of comes into,
Yeah.
regardless of where you rank these movies, but it's also who do you have in? Because I think that there is a pretty clear, distinct top six here. Maybe you can extend that out to
Seven,
seven.
maybe even
But
eight, I'd say, with the
maybe,
resurgence of Frankenstein.
yeah, and it's just fun, I think, out there just to see who has what. Are they going with double international? Are they going triple international? Are they going with one neon? Are they going with two? Are they going with two populist? Where do they fill out these ranks? Personally, for me, to round up my director five, I do have two neons. Have Jafar Panahi for It Was Just an Accident, and I do still have Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. And then I'm keeping Ryan Coogler along for Sinners. I get the argument that he could fall in the line of recent Warner Brothers blockbuster type filmmakers, missing at the end of the day with Denis Villeneuve in Dune Part 2 and Dune and Greta Gerwig for Barbie. But one thing I said initially when Sinners came out and we were having this whole conversation around how big will Sinners be is the fact that Sinners wasn't meant to be a blockbuster just like Get Out from Jordan Peele a few years ago. Like these are films that are a lot smaller in scale that are great examples of over performances, both with critics, both with audiences, both with box office. And I think the biggest thing working for Coogler and working for Sinners is the whole aspect of how they went about shooting this movie on the formats, on the big wide scale. And I mean, they had that whole Kodak interview before, which really ramped up in the production. And I think that throughout the year, and especially when we get into a lot of these regional critic groups, that I think Coogler will show a lot more strength than what Denis or Gerwig did in the last few years.
Yeah, I'm still holding Ryan Coogler out of my top five. I think that if he is in the top five, then this is really win competitive for Best Picture, which maybe it is. Maybe it is. But right now, I just have a feeling that the director's branch is going to go much more highbrow. I don't think that they will go for the blockbuster. And I do actually disagree with you. I think Sinners was meant to be a blockbuster. Otherwise, they would not have cut that absurd fucking deal with Ryan Coogler. Warner Brothers knew that this would be a hit. They might not have known how much of a hit it would be. They might not have known that it would have been a critical sensation, but they knew that they were going to make some money on this. Otherwise, I don't think they would have
I'm
given the lucrative deal that they gave Ryan Coogler.
I would counteract that with the fact that they just gave PTA all that money to do one battle with full creative freedom. And I think Warner Brothers is in this new state underneath the new regime where they just want to work with these filmmakers, something that we've seen Netflix do in the past, where they just say, hey, take all the money, do whatever you want. We just want you working with us. And I think it's a direct response to them losing Christopher Nolan, where they lose their big cash cow, they lose their big creative force, and now they have to find who can be that new person. So I think they definitely probably expected money for Sinners in one battle. I just think that Sinners was meant to be more so of like, I don't know, $100 million domestically, not nearly $300 million domestically, and it just exploded past all their expectations.
I do think that the director's branch, who is more highbrow, will sort of resist and will go with the triple crown of international filmmakers, all of whom have a different base that they're targeting. Sentimental Value is the middlebrow crowd pleaser. Then you've got It Was Just an Accident, which is for the highbrows. This is the people that voted for Drive My Car and Ryosuke Hamaguchi to make it into the director lineup. And then Park Chan-wook for No Other Choice. being another crowd pleaser, but that comes from a more thrilling, more violent, more maximalist style of filmmaking. I think all of those are a different type of voter, and that's why I think all three can coexist, not just in Best Picture, but in Best Director as well.
I would agree if these three films can coexist in picture, you would have to think that they would get along for director because that's been my hesitation of No Other Choice, especially after seeing it, is what can be its package. And while you can make a great case for like, oh yeah, it's picture, director, screenplay, international, maybe like editing or actor. It's just it's going head to head with the other Neon movies and a few of those categories specifically with editing and director. And it's like, can Neon get three directors? Can they get two editing? It's something that I'm not warmed up to yet. I know you are a little bit more warmed up to that, and I think will be really interesting to see this season. Regardless, though, I think that having three Neons is kind of smart. I think it's kind of hedging your bets because they're probably going to get two. It's just which two you can probably lean to. It's Panahi and Trier, but I mean, maybe there's a weird chance where Trier may miss or Panahi may miss, and Park Chan Wook is the one that rises up in the ranks.
I would also say I'm seeing a wave of people doubting No Other Choice because they're like, "Oh, Neon's pouring all of their publicity efforts into it was just an accident and sentimental value. I haven't seen anything for No Other Choice." We're a month and a half away from No Other Choice releasing limited in theaters. They haven't even started their
Hmm.
campaign yet. They have not begun. And at that point, they could leave It Was Just an Accident or Sentimental Value behind and go all in on No Other Choice. No Other Choice won the TIFF International People's Choice Award. There's clear audience passion for this. Both Park Chan Wook and Lee Byung Hun have been picking up awards at different festivals around the world. They've been doing as much of a press tour as Jafar Panahi, as Joachim Trier. They have been doing work for No Other Choice. The only reason we're not seeing that yet, and the only reason it's not being publicly talked about or posted on Instagram or whatever, is that No Other Choice is not in theaters. Sentimental Value and It Was Just an Accident are. And
Hmm.
so I have a feeling at the end of the year, whatever Neon's doing right now, that's not what they're going to be doing then. And we'll have to see how it all develops. But it is not an argument currently that No Other Choice is not being prioritized by them because, of course, it's not. It hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that point there. My big holdup, and I feel like a broken record, is just what will the industry think of Park? We haven't seen them respond to him. There's
Yes.
been some controversy, especially in the last few months. It's just, will that be an issue or will they look past that? And I think there's a real shot, going back to something that we talked about a few minutes ago, is the whole parallels to like last year of A24, where we were all so certain Sing Sing was going to be their player, that Sing Sing was going to get seven, eight nominations. There's going to be a win competitor in picture, and it just continues to fall off because another contender arises. And maybe that's the case with one of these Neon movies this year. As early on, Sentimental Value was the widely expected movie. Then, as of recent, it's shifted more towards It Was Just an Accident. And maybe at the end of the year, like you said, No Other Choice goes limited on Christmas, wide in early January, just like The Brutalist last year. And maybe that's the movie that rallies behind Neon's campaigners, rallies behind the people, and it rises the ranks in fault of another movie dropping down the ranks. So Matt is on Team 3 Neon and Best Director. I am on 2 Neon plus Ryan Coogler for Sinners, but there's a lot of other people out there who would take out Coogler, who would take out one of the Neon movies, and they are probably going with Josh Safdie and Marty Supreme. And this is
Mm-hmm.
one that I totally get the hype behind. It's just, this also kind of feels like the movie that they sometimes just don't include in their director five, where like it makes sense for a bunch of tech nominations, it makes sense for an actor potential win, screenplay nomination, but it's the one that they leave out for something that they're just more passionate behind, which is kind of weird to say because this is a movie that clearly has passion out of that New York Film Festival screening, and it's one that I get to see super soon. So I'm interested to see if will I have immense passion, will I see other people have this ravenous response out of the theaters, or is it something that burst onto the scene but never really rekindles that initial bubble that it had at its first screening?
I also feel like what people have talked about with it being really safty, very uncut gems in how anxiety fueled it is. I think that's going to make it a little bit polarizing, especially when we get to these big industry awards. Um, I think it's really, really strong for a bunch of nominations, but I don't think it's going to be top of the top of the top at the end of the year. Um, I don't know. I feel like it has a better shot in screenplay than it has here because I feel like if people are pushed to that point of like, oh my God, I'm tearing my hair out, I can't watch this, it's going to be because of like the frantic camera and the close-ups more than the screenplay itself. So to me, Josh Safdie is right on the outside, but I can totally see an argument for him getting in there if this film gets the passion that we're talking about.
And the other movie I think is worth talking at extent about here in the Best Director race is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is, I think, surpassing even our super high expectations for at the beginning of the year in this specific
Yeah.
moment. It's probably going to go down as one of the top five, if not top three, audience favorites of our eventual Best Picture lineup. This thing is just doing numbers on Netflix. People are loving this movie across all platforms. Letterboxd, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic's
Mhm.
even continuing to go up. And it just seems like the initial reports out of Venice and Telluride have come 180 now, where it's going in the complete opposite direction, and the direction that Netflix, Del Toro, and everyone who worked on Frankenstein wants to see. And I think there's a sneaky chance that Frankenstein could end up as one of the top nominated movies at this year's Oscars.
Oh, totally.
And at that point, you find yourself in a Dune Part 2 situation where does the director come along? Or is it like, oh, you get all these texts, but who directed the movie? We don't really know.
Dude, Guillermo del Toro, Frankenstein has surpassed so much. It's so rare to have a Netflix movie come out that just feels unanimously liked by people. Like, I feel like every time we talk about a Netflix movie and then it releases on Netflix, everyone's like, what is this fucking garbage? This is awful. And it's a weird thing where the audience that watches like things on Netflix and waits for the latest Netflix release and doesn't go to the theater, just watches on Netflix. They don't like the type of movies that typically end up in the Oscar race, which means that usually stuff like Power of the Dog, House of Dynamite, Roma, The Irishman, Marriage Story get fucking clowned on when they come on Netflix. And it's this weird thing where films that seem universally beloved outside of Netflix, uh, films that seem universally beloved in like the cinephile space. And I say this not as a derogatory thing against Frankenstein, but it's kind of the perfect Netflix movie. Like when I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, every 5 minutes, there's some big action moment, some big thing that's like, don't look at your phone. Keep looking at this. We're going to grab your attention. It is absolutely tailor made for a Netflix audience. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing at all, but it's definitely why people on that platform are loving it the way that they are.
I think the most interesting aspect about Frankenstein is I think a large reason why people adore this movie is because of Guillermo del Toro. And I think that goes
Yeah.
back to Toronto this year is it placed number two at the TIFF PCA. And I think the international PCA is something that we'll have to see going forward, how important and how impactful it is. Will it be like the normal PCA where one or two movies consistently get in, or will it be something like maybe we see one, where with the PCA, we've seen year after year, two usually get in. And I think that there's in another world, this could have won the PCA of Hamnet, which is clearly the festival darling and sweeper. It's winning almost every fest it goes to, wasn't present. And I just, it spins the gears of my head of like, this fits the mold of like what people talk about with like Sinners, or it fits the mold of like the Denis and Greta Gerwigs of the past, of the big populist movie that somehow misses out on its director nomination because if Frankenstein was a theatrical release, clearly this thing would probably be doing numbers. It would probably pass $100 million domestically, would probably pass $250 million worldwide, maybe even 300. We've seen the love from this movie. It probably would play well if it got a proper theatrical release from someone like Warner or Universal or something like that. So like, would this miss director, or because it's on Netflix, because it doesn't have that appeal to it, can it overcome that and can it get in our director five? And if it does, is it at the fault of Coogler? Probably, or is that the fault of one of the neon people? And I think this is one that throughout the season will just continue to rise. I don't think we're at the peak yet. I think Frankenstein will go up. I want to put in my five, and honestly, I might make the hot switch here to put it in. I just don't want to take out Coogler quite yet.
You know what's keeping me from putting Guillermo del Toro in my top five? I don't have it making DGA. But you know who I do crazy have making
I think
DGA?
I know who.
John M. Chu, baby. I think he's the populist pick that we usually see at DGA because we usually get one director that we go, that can't happen. That's crazy. And I think John M. Chu could be that this year for Wicked for Good.
So moving on to our next category here, let's do the brand new one, best casting. And this is one that I think there's so much discourse online about what will this category be? Will it be like BAFTA? We don't know. We've never had this before. But if I had to assume if the Academy made a casting branch, just like they do for costumes or song or visual effects, they're probably pulling from the guild. And we've had a casting guild that has had a total of 39, no, not even 39, that has had a total of 40 years of history to draw back on. And I think that would be like a great place to cross reference. The only issue with the casting guild is they have like 15 categories. They split
Yeah.
everything up. They have best big budget feature comedy, big budget drama, independent drama, low budget comedy, international film, animation, and they used to have like a populist zeitgeist type award that they haven't done every year. So like the only issue of looking at the casting guild is usually all of your casting precursors or all of your casting contenders, if we had to go back in the past, probably at least one, if not were nominated there.
Yeah, and you've done a really good breakdown of this. So, like I think that you've put in more work into figuring out what this category is than anyone else that I know. You've done some great work on breaking this down and figuring out what this category might be. I have not done that. I am going a little bit blind on this one and just thinking, what are the big ensemble casts that we got? And, what are the impressive casting achievements? Like, for example, I mean, you might notice that I have Hamnet not in my top five, and that's because how impressive really is it when your movie's the Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal show? How impressive is it when you're just like, yeah, these are the two biggest actors of their age demographic in Britain right now. Let's cast them. I mean, you could make an argument, and the reason I have it at number seven and not off the list altogether, you could make an argument for the child actors in this film and that being a reason to nominate it. But to me, I don't think it's really all that impressive to put together a cast that's like, the two hottest British stars right now, and then like a bunch of kids that are the siblings of other child performers. So I don't have that in because that just doesn't feel right to me as something that this will go for. Granted, BAFTA casting probably. But what does seem like a very impressive casting achievement to me is something like One Battle After Another, where you're putting together this massive ensemble that goes across the ages. There's, it starts 25 years before, and you have that progression going through. You have the casting of people that feel a little bit unorthodox for a piece like this, like Teyana Taylor, or going into the comedy world and pulling in Regina Hall. I mean, Leo is the obvious one, right? But like, that's not an achievement in casting. But Chase Infinity, what a find. She's never done anything before.
And kind of lamely, doing the research of casting at the guild kind of shows that what you would expect kind of is what really happens is they love discoveries. They love when you have a youth actor like Chase Infinity, like Miles Caden, like the kids in Hamnet, and they love when you do stuff like that, like going in the past, movies that you wouldn't expect to win casting awards, like Are You There, God It's Me, Margaret, win the Casting Guild Award. And the other thing that they really seem to love too is a wide array of your cast, of pulling people from all different backgrounds, like he talked about for One Battle. Like I think it could apply to something like Wicked, where you pull in a pop star, you pull in Broadway talent, you pull in blockbuster actors like Jeff Goldblum. I think what we'll end up seeing this year is Sinners will definitely take the big budget drama award. And then it kind of comes down to the comedy. Are they going to repeat their winner of last year of going with Wicked, or if they're going to go with something like One Battle this year, which would be something new and something fresh? So we could have a showdown there. And I think, funny enough, you mentioned BAFTA. I think BAFTA would go with Hamnet because you have Jesse Buckley to match the BAFTA track record of a acting win, as well as having youth discoveries and performances, as well as being a British type film. So I think we could have a great chance this year for the first casting Oscar, where we have three different movies win the little precursors that we currently have to make for an interesting battle at the end of the day. So currently I would have those four movies in, and I would have the fifth slot being really open to kind of how you want to go down the line. Do you want to go with something more international, like Sentimental Value? It was just an accident, or maybe even like No Other Choice. So they've only had the international category for 1 year, and last year was Emilia Perez, which I think the biggest thing with that was the Carla casting before the stuff kind of happened with Carla, as well as plugging Zoe Saldana into a role that you would never really expect her to be in. And this year, I feel like both Sentimental Value and Accident kind of have good cases, but I also say for the No Other Choice believers that putting Lee Bai-hung in a absurdist type comedy role where we really haven't seen him work in that realm, at least on a wide scale yet, could be a possible extra nomination for that movie if it's really strong at the very end of the day.
Well, but the thing with Marty Supreme is it's not just that it's a large cast with a lot of speaking roles. It's where they pulled everyone from. Like the casting is insane on that movie. Who would have thought that fucking billionaire scumbag Kevin O'Leary would end up being praised as a potential best supporting actor contender? That's fucking crazy that they managed to pull this guy and put him in the right role for it. Because it's not just like what I always hear about directing actors is that directing is 99% casting. Because if you get the right person for the role, then you don't need to coach that person as a director and tell them what to do. They will bring the right stuff to it. And Marty Supreme, I think, is a testament to that because you put Kevin O'Leary in 99% of roles, not right for it. But suddenly, this fucking asshole is getting crazy praise, and they just picked him for the right role. You know, you put him in the right part, and he does something amazing. Otherwise, I mean, the amount of athletes, the amount of musicians, Tyler the Creator is in this, getting some buzz for his small speaking role. You pull people like Gwyneth Paltrow, who has not acted outside of the Marvel universe in like what 10, 15 years. You pull in Fran Drescher. You pull in new discoveries like Odessa Azion, and like you got a stew going there. That's my argument for why I think Marty Supreme is top three because the casting work they pulled from every corner of celebrities and pop culture, and they put together a cast that looks like an island of misfit toys, but seemingly works incredibly well on every level. So I think that's above Wicked for Good, actually, because the thing that people have been telling us all year long, as we've been saying, oh, Wicked could win casting, it is the second movie. And yes, they haven't had this prize before. Yes, they have not given this prize, which might give it a leg up because they'd be awarding the casting of the first movie as well as this one, but it's still a second movie. And so I think that that is vulnerable. I think that could absolutely slip. While Marty Supreme, like that is truly an achievement in casting.
And there would be one other movie I would really want to propose for a potential nomination here, and that's Frankenstein. If it
Mhm.
continues to rise up the ranks, I mean, you're casting Jacob Elordi in this role, and I think there could be a huge argument out there for saying they originally casted someone else, they backed out, and they had to find someone pretty last minute, and they found someone who could eventually be paired with a supporting actor nomination of Jacob Elordi, who is seemingly getting the praise of the best in show of the ensemble. You have someone playing multiple roles inside the movie. You have Oscar Isaac kind of working against type for what he historically has done in his leading roles. And then you bring in some Guillermo del Toro favorites, giving them places to shine here that you don't typically see them shine in their typical Guillermo presences. So, like, I don't currently have it in, but it's something that I could see go up. I feel good about my four, but it's a category that we haven't really seen before. So, like you said, Marty can easily overtake like Hamnet or Wicked. Frankenstein can take that fifth slot, or we see one of these international movies claim the number five with the strength they have in Best Picture.
I'll just touch a little bit more on sentimental value. I think that the fact that we're likely to see four acting nominations for this movie, the fact that it's pulling from Hollywood as well as Norway, looking at the stage, looking at television on Norway, as well as bringing Stellan Skarsgård into a role that felt like it feels like this is what his entire career has led up to. All of that feels like enough to me for a casting nomination here because genuinely, if you're getting four acting nominations, same thing for One Battle After Another. how do you not get casting? Like, clearly, you've done a really good job of casting your movie. I also just want to shout out Weapons because that's a huge cast as well. And they're pulling from tons of different sources, putting together an ensemble that all balances each other out. Um, doing, I mean, they're casting for something where everyone is the lead role of their specific section of the movie. You know, Josh Brolin is briefly the lead. Julia Gardner is briefly the lead. Austin Abrams, briefly the lead. Amy Madigan, never really the lead, but always that menacing, terrifying presence. And they're getting her in the Oscar conversation for the first time really in her career. I do think that Weapons, if it ends up being possibly a low tier best picture contender, in original screenplay, in for Amy Madigan, in for makeup and hair, why not casting? And moving over to the original screenplay category, this is going to echo a lot of the things that we've been saying in some of the other categories here. But Dylan, I think this is where you and I differ. You have Sinners winning. I have Sentimental Value winning.
I do, and I think this really just goes back to the comparisons that I made over in the Best Director category of can Sinners follow in the same sort of trajectory of something like Get Out, where it defies the expectations during its initial run. It gets such high praise from all audiences, from all corners of the voting base, and then it continues just to go on to just win and win and win every chance it gets at the big award shows later down the line. But this year, I think, unlike that year, like, oh, it's Get Out and maybe Lady Bird is number two. This year, I think you have four viable contenders to win this original screenplay prize. I think we could have a race where, theoretically, kind of like what I said with casting, we could have a race where each one of these four movies has a different precursor, which I'm always in support of. I love a chaotic category.
That could be very interesting. Yeah, at this point, I would say WGA is Sinners, which is why I've got it number two. I think BAFTA and Globes go Sentimental Value. Um, I don't see Marty Supreme or It Was Just an Accident winning. And Critics' Choice Award, I think, is between Sinners and Sentimental Value for original screenplay. Some people would say Sinners is a lock there for screenplay. I don't get that. I don't see why it would be. But I think it's a battle 1A, 1B at Critics' Choice. So to me, both of those movies are going to come in with something. They're both going to come in with precursors. It's just a toss up of what is doing better at that point. If Sinners is only contending for screenplay and song, then Sentimental Value will probably win. If it's contending for screenplay and international feature and Stellan Skarsgård and potentially Elle Fanning, if it's sort of in the running for all of those, then it's got to win screenplay, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall at the moment. Sentimental Value, like we were saying earlier, it's easy to think that it's losing steam, but it's just because people haven't been seeing it yet. Give it 2 weeks, everyone's going to be talking about that movie.
I think the more interesting thing with original screenplay is actually the fifth slot. I think one through four are all but signed, sealed, and delivered, and it's just what are the order of those four movies. But with the fifth slot, what is the fifth slot? Because I think there's a handful of movies you can make a case for, and those handful of movies all have at least one thing saying, no, you're stupid, move to another option. It's just which one makes the most sense. Is it something like Jay Kelly, which you saw earlier this week? So I'll let you talk about Jay Kelly here first, because I think that is probably the most widely predicted one of the open fifth slot at the moment.
Yeah, I've got Jay Kelly right now. I'm not feeling amazing about that because it doesn't have great critical reception or audience reception. This is going to depend on how the industry reacts to it, which we have no way of gauging right now. We just have audience and we just have critics. But this is very much a screenplay movie. It is very much a talky movie that really takes a character through a journey. There's a lot of fierce conversations and some great comedic moments throughout. But really, it's a movie about Hollywood. And that is the biggest thing going for it right now. Because if we have this open fifth slot, this movie just feels like it could speak to voters. And again, Noah Baumbach seems like a bit of a branch fave. I don't think he's an Oscar fave, but Baumbach has been getting screenplay nominations far before he ever got a Best Picture nomination. He got in for The Squid and the Whale. I think I might be wrong. He might have gotten in for something with Wes Anderson, but he got that before Marriage Story. And even when he wasn't getting films into the Oscar conversation, he was still getting some screenplay nominations here and there for his indies, like Francis Ha. Um, and so this is a writer's writer. People love Noah Baumbach. Screenwriters love Noah Baumbach. So right now, with this open fifth slot, I feel pretty good about him here. But, Weapons, probably going to get the WGA nomination. But Blue Moon also probably could get the WGA nomination. So I think we've got a race between three movies here for that fifth slot. And it just depends, what way are you feeling? Personally, I'd go in order of likelihood: Jay Kelly, Weapons, Blue Moon. But I think you probably feel a little bit different than I do.
I currently do feel a little bit different, but I agree with all those points you made about Jay Kelly. I think on paper, this makes the most sense. And especially even if this ends up missing Best Picture, I think that Jay Kelly fits the mold of a typical solo screenplay type movie where maybe Clooney is the odd man out and lead actor. Maybe picture it's not in, Bertel misses for score, cinematography is out, blah, 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 going down the line. But screenplay, I feel like, is its best or safest type bet. It's just the issue there is, if it doesn't connect with the industry at large, we know general audiences aren't going to go bat for it. We know that critics aren't going to go bat for it. So I would assume it would just have to be a constant shower at the precursors. But this year, we don't get a lot of those precursors before nominations. A lot of them are going to be after. BAFTA is after. WGA is after. All we'll have ahead of time is Globe, which just won't make a lineup of 6 of both categories, and CCA, which CCA, I would assume it would probably make that nomination. On the flip side, though, I do agree. I think Weapons continuously get stronger and stronger and a more likely nomination possibility the further we get. House of Dynamite is on the way down. Is this thing on? Is something that just doesn't seem to be a starter. I think it could be one of those movies like where we talked about with like No Other Choice. It hasn't come out yet. Of course, they're not really campaigning or making it known, but I also just feel like Searchlight has shown by buying Ann Lee that they are going to try to focus on Ann Lee, even if that's going to be something that comes up short at the end of the day. And then like Sorry Baby, Rental Family, are those realistic contenders here in screenplay? Probably not. We're going to get our typical commenter out there who loves to call us dumb Americans. Secret Agent from All Accord does not seem like a screenplay movie. It seems like it's more an international feature at best. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I know you have. I know a ton of people in our Discord community have. And they all say the same thing. Oh, I've seen the movie. Now I know why Matt hasn't had it in all year long.
Yeah. Also, for the record, for our commenter I'm not American, man. I mean, I'm a dual citizen, but I'm Canadian. Okay, let's get something straight here. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is a battle of the top eight. A House of Dynamite is dropping and dropping and dropping. So I think seven is really where it cuts off for me. Um, but all of these last spots kind of have the same argument, which is all of them could get an actor, right? Jay Kelly, Weapons, Blue Moon, all of them can get an actor in, and they can add a screenplay to that, right? You've got George Clooney, maybe Adam Sandler, but I don't think so. I disagree with anyone saying Adam Sandler has a chance. But George Clooney in screenplay, that could be a pair. Amy Madigan in screenplay, that could be a pair. Ethan Hawke's screenplay, that could be a pair. It just depends where you're feeling like the buzz is, where you're feeling like the vibes are. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just waiting for Ella McKay with the steel chair. That's gonna come in. It's gonna upset everything. Ella McKay is going to change the whole race.
Hey, someone broke embargo the other day and said Ellen McKay was actually pretty good. So we'll have to see. I think the official embargo is in like a week or so. So we'll get more reactions there of this is going to be a actual contender. And this is actually 20th Century's number 2 and not Springsteen. But as you mentioned there, I currently do have Blue Moon in my fifth slot. I think behind Sony Pictures Classics. We talked a little bit about this in our Best Picture video. I don't think this is going to be the father for them where it can crack that Best Picture lineup. But I do think this can be a living where Personally, I was not on the living train all year long until it just happened, where Bill Nighy got in everywhere, where adapted screenplay got in everywhere where it theoretically probably could have. And here, I think Blue Moon could be the same. Obviously, it's not going to make Globe, but I think WGA will happen. I think BAFTA could happen. And I think at that point, Oscar could happen too behind Sony Pictures Classics campaigning, Ethan Hawke and actor, maybe Andrew Scott supporting, and maybe makeup. I think Blue Moon and Weapons are oddly enough two movies fighting for like the same type of path, and it's just like which one's going to come true: the screenplay, the makeup, and a acting, and it's just which one.
Anyways, let's move to this last category here, Best Adapted Screenplay, which I personally think is probably our most dead field in terms of potential nominations. I have 12 films listed for original screenplay. I only have 8 that I think are worth mentioning in adapted. So that's not great. That's not fantastic. But let's quickly talk about the top 2. We know One Battle After Another, Hamnet. Those are 1 and 2. There's no disputing that. I don't even think it's worth talking about. We know that those are the top 2. Let's not focus on that anymore. So, Dylan, tell me, what is your number 3?
My number 3 currently is still Begonia. I get all the reasons not, but I think to
Really?
my point of what I've been saying for months now about Begonia is the general audience is liking this movie. It had a phenomenal weekend number 2 hold. It dropped like 30%. The audience numbers I get not on like Rotten Tomatoes, but everywhere else continues to be overtly strong. I think Focus knows how to campaign movies in specific categories. Even if Begonia comes up short in Best Picture, we saw last year with Nosferatu. They got every single tech nomination for that movie. And I think that they can do the same for Begonia this year, where if they just hone in on Adapted, they hone in on Emma Stone, that they can get those two, even if it misses out on picture. I currently still have at my 10, but I'm getting closer and closer to taking it out. I just think that Begonia is doing enough. It's just, will the industry come to bat for it, or will the industry be like, okay, Yorgos, you've had your 2. We're going to back off this time. Will Tracy's no McNamara. We have other movies to go for here. But like you said, Adapted is so weak. And honestly, for me, I really only see 6 movies with a 40% chance or more type chance for a nomination. And I think the 7, 8, 9s for me are kind of just like pipe dreams where like maybe they happen, but why would they happen?
I don't know, man. Begonia it's not doing anything that I want to see it do. It has one of Yorgos's like worst critical scores ever, and I think he's a filmmaker that needs that critic support. I don't see the audience passion that you're seeing. I don't know. I don't know, man. I think it's possible, but I've got Begonia all the way down at 7 in adapted screenplay right now.
So then to round out my 5, I do have Frankenstein up there. I think, like we've said in every category here today, it continues to
Yeah.
rise and rise and rise. And that one, it would make sense where this could be the odd thing out for it. Like Jacob Elordi and Adapted just don't come along. But I think that the movie continues to show why those will probably come along. And especially in this category, it's like, what do you pluck from? And my big question here is, what do I do with number 5? Do I go with third time around for Ryan Johnson for Wake Up Dead Man? And I get the Metacritic is essentially the same as the last 2, but I think if you look at any other metric for this movie, it is clearly the bottom of the last ones. I think the first Knives Out movie had buzz for an actor to potentially get nominated. Didn't happen. The second one had Janelle Monáe come along, and there was even talks of Best Picture. Obviously, those didn't happen. And now we're here with round number 3. And there's no potential acting. There's no costumes or production design to come along. There's no score like the first movie. It's just adapted screenplay. And I think we always talk about sequel bias, blah, 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 and how maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't for specific movies. But I think maybe it comes around to bite Wake Up Dead Man here, where just not enough passion for this movie. Like TIFF, yeah, sure, it plays top 3, but like when it's playing a lot of these regional festivals, if you look at like reactions at these festivals, it's not as like euphoric and as bouncy as the last 2 were. And I just think with what Netflix has, and Netflix having 3 contenders possibly in this category, that this might be the number 3 Netflix, and it's not enough for the top 5. So I currently have no other choice. And does that make sense with anything else I've said about this movie between picture and director? No, but I think due to the weakness of the category that it can survive here, because like, what am I going to do? Put Wicked for Good in? Am I going to put Train Dreams in? No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you have no other choice in. I mean, even if you don't have it in any other categories except international, it can still be the worst person in the world,
Hmm.
right? Where it gets two nominations, overperforms. Granted, I do have no other choice in four categories, verging on five. I almost have Lee Byung-hun in. And so to me, it's a no-brainer, an adapted screenplay. I have it at my number three spot. Frankenstein, like you were saying, I rocketed this up into my top five once I saw it. I think before I'd seen the movie, I was sort of worried that potentially maybe there could be a bit of an issue with this one where it's like a spectacle movie. It's not writery, but watching it, this is a writer's movie. People are gonna love, like writers are gonna love this movie. It has all of those vibes of it has everything that screenwriters love in an adaptation. It takes old source material, makes it new, does something fresh with it, and stays extremely faithful to the tone of the original while creating a new path in terms of sub story choices. So, um, I feel like that it's a given for adapted screenplay. I haven't seen Wake Up Dead Man. I can't weigh in on that. But Train Dreams, I'm curious why you don't think this has a chance. It is still Netflix's most critically acclaimed movie of any. People are clearly really loving this movie. Is it just that it's too small for it to get a nomination? I mean, granted, last year, Sing Sing, which is the same writers as Train Dreams, that got a screenplay nomination. So why not Train Dreams?
You just made the point right there. If it gets in, it's Sing Sing 2.0. But Sing Sing was a film that had the buzz all year long. And at the end of the day, it clung on to Colman Domingo. It clung on to adapted screenplay. And I think the opposite here for Train Dreams is it hasn't had the buzz all year long. It premiered at Sundance. People loved it there. And they didn't talk about it for 7, 8 months, and then now it comes here for the fall film festivals. People are talking about it, but not onto the level of a lot of these other contenders. And I think with the film actively in limited release right now, coming to Netflix here in about 2 weeks, I think it will be Judgment Day, to reference another movie in this category, this film being a legitimate contender or not. And I just think while Sing Sing did get those nominations last year, it was supposed to get those nominations all year long, while Train Dreams is fighting the uphill battle. And I just think this movie is too small. I think that this movie is specifically for a type of demographic and a crowd out there. I just don't know if the Oscars for that crowd. I think that this could be just like one of those things that people really want to happen, but just doesn't come to fruition. And I think that Train Dreams, Wake Up Dead Man are the first two out, but I would put right along with them is Nuremberg. And I think that just shows how far I think those
Woo!
movies are outside on the race.
That's
Nuremberg, people talk about a
crazy.
movie with passion. That thing's got like a 99% out there on Rotten Tomatoes. Old heads, they're gonna eat this up. I was at work the other day, and we keep ESPN up on one of our like broadcast tabs for like preview. And the trailer for Nuremberg came on, and that room erupted. They said this thing looks so good. Russell Crowe, I haven't seen him in something great in a long time. I'm so excited to see this movie. So clearly, control room people, they want to see Nuremberg succeed. Nuremberg is September 5 all over again.
Nuremberg is a 12 nomination movie from 20 years ago,
Yes, exactly.
but not now. Honestly, Wicked for Good, I have at my eighth spot right now, but I think that there's an angle for it to climb up. I mean, you did mention WGA comes out after the Oscar nominations this year, but I feel like it's got a really good shot for a WGA nomination. Um, and to me, it could really climb up because of that. So, yeah, Wicked for Good. I don't know. I think the angle for this one really is just how much they're going to have to add to beef up the story, to make this paced better than it is on Broadway. Because instead of having, 45 minutes to tell this giant chunk of the story, they have 2.5 hours. So there's a lot of new material in this one. And I'm curious if the writer's branch responds to the fact that this had to be completely rebuilt for the adaptation. But we'll have to see how that goes. I do think WGA's in it. I do think WGA is a given. But what other precursors can Wicked for Good get? Yeah, what about Song Sung Blue?
Hey, I mean, you get to see it this week. You'll be able to report on it next week. That's
I
the fun
will.
thing. I got to see two failed call shots this week. I saw Die My Love. I saw Christy. So I'll talk more about those chances in next week's acting episode. Matt, you'll get to report on all those movies that you mentioned at the start of the episode, and potentially
Lots.
we'll be able to talk about Hamnet as well, depending on when we record next week.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much on the horizon. Maybe I'll do a documentary update because I will have seen like all of the contenders that I need to see. So that's exciting too. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Please remember, like, subscribe, leave a comment, join the Discord. My name's Matt.
My name's Dill, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.